This podcast is part of Mishmash Media. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Welcome to another episode of Curbcast. This is a podcast where we review every episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm in chronological order, scene by scene, and we're watching these for the very first time. My name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And we are back for the final episode of Season 8, one which I enjoyed somewhat, but there were some pretty good moments between Larry and Michael. Larry versus Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, very self-explanatory in the title. You knew what you were getting into. And even before I watched the episode based on the title, I knew it would be Larry making fun of, or the jokes would center around Michael J. Fox's Parkinson's disease. I just thought, well, that's the obvious ground for making jokes in this episode. And lo and behold, that's pretty much what it centers around.
Basically, and then, you know, the mystery of whether Michael is it's actually his Parkinson's that's causing all these issues, or if he's actually just using it as a cover to, you know, screw Larry over.
Yeah, a Parkinson shake or a pissed shake is how I believe Larry terms it.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool of Michael J. Fox to, I guess, make light of it. You know, he kind of, I guess, is self-deprecating in the episode, and he makes light of what is a extremely serious condition and one that's effectively ended his career, you know, as an actor at least. But the fact that he came on and, you know, wasn't afraid to make fun of himself is, you know, I just thought that was pretty cool of him.
Yeah, it's very nice. I mean, we have seen Michael J. Fox. I have seen him in other TV shows and, you know, more recent, probably not films necessarily, but I have seen him in a couple of other shows in the last, say, 10, 15 years where he has played a character with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
But I like Michael J. Fox, how I think he plays a really good villain, because I watched a TV show, The Good Wife, when it came out, and he was in one of the seasons. He actually played a lawyer who was, you know, opposed to, they were doing a case against the main character from The Good Wife.
Yep.
And he'd kind of use his Parkinson's as like a thing to kind of get his case across, you know, for people to feel sorry for him as well.
Right.
Even though he was like Machiavellian about the whole thing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've never seen him in a villainous role, but I mean, he's a great actor. So, you know, I'm sure he could do anything really. And just thinking about it now as well, like, even though the jokes about Parkinson's in this episode, it's sort of like, basically, like, that's what most of the jokes are about. I guess the joke's never really on Michael. Like, it's sort of always, you know, Larry's the one who always looks bad, and people are upset with Larry. So even though Parkinson's itself is what this episode is about in terms of its humor, it's never putting Parkinson's or Michael or, you know, anyone with Parkinson's sort of, you know, it's never they're never the butt of the joke. It's advantageous to them and it makes Larry look bad. So yeah, but, you know, even still, I don't think a lot of people with conditions would be willing to come onto a, you know, a pretty dark comedy show to make fun of it, you know, regardless of how it's portrayed. I think I don't know. I just think that that's pretty, obviously Michael J. Fox is fairly, well, accepting of it, or, you know, he seems well adjusted with that reality, and, you know, he's willing to use it in these sort of ways.
Yeah, for sure. When you kind of you kind of satirize your condition. I mean, you're not, like you were saying before, you're not satirizing the actual person with the condition. You're just satirizing, well, kind of like events which relate to the condition.
Yeah, the byproduct of, you know, interacting with other people when you have the condition. And like I said, Larry is the one who's sort of the butt of all the jokes, and everyone's against Larry, and, you know, no one's on his side. So, you know, it's not really, it's leveraging it, I think, in a smart way for sure. If you want to get in touch with us, you can. We've got an email address, curbcastpod@gmail.com. We're on social media as well. Curbcastpod is our handle, and you can support us financially. We've got a Patreon, patreon.com/mishmash media. For $1 US a month, you can get access to our episodes a little earlier than the normal feed. And if you want to support us in other ways, you can just spread the word. Leave us a review or a rating, or tell anyone in your life who likes Curb about us, or, you know, email us. Tell us we're great. Tell us we're not. It's up to you.
Exactly. Yeah. Give us a review. 1 star to 5 star. It's totally fine.
Yeah. We accept all feedback, good and bad.
Yes, we sure do. Anyway, let's get into it. Larry versus Michael J. Fox. And at the end of the episode, we'll give a brief recap on Season 8 overall. Let you know our thoughts, our favourite episodes. And because it has been quite a long stretch of us doing Season 8, you know, through, the unintentional hiatus we had, you know, nearly 3/4 of the way through Season 8. And a few things have happened as well in our personal lives. So, yeah, we've taken a little while to get to this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we'll give a bit of a recap at the end for the entire season. Larry vs. Michael J. Fox aired in the US on HBO on September 11th, 2011. In this episode, Larry accuses his neighbor Michael J. Fox of harassment. Jeff takes a bullet for Susie, and Larry is scolded for giving an inappropriate birthday gift to Jennifer's son, Greg. So Jennifer was his girlfriend from last episode, Mr. Softy, so she's in another one. This episode, Steve, would be the last one for 6 years, as the next season, season 9, wouldn't premiere until 2017.
Yeah, I do remember around this time, we weren't Curb watchers really at that time, but I do vaguely remember people after a couple of years asking, will Curb ever come back? Will Curb ever come back? Yeah, I do vaguely remember, the 6-year hiatus being a point of concern for a lot of fans because, that's even for Curb, which does take gaps and longer gaps as the seasons go on. I think 6 years is probably the longest between seasons.
It has, and it's come back, and there's been some really, well, obviously we haven't watched them yet, but from what I've heard, there've been some pretty good episodes in the last few years.
Yeah, and look, sometimes a 6-year break can be a good thing. Creatively, you're empty. Maybe you wanted to do other things. Maybe you didn't think it was worth it. Maybe it was a business decision. Who knows? But if we can get Curb, even with a 6-year wait between seasons, I'll take it.
Yeah, me too. But thankfully, you won't have to wait 6 years for another episode of Curbcast.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Well, maybe. But
Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should just have a 6-year break.
At this rate, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I know with what's been happening. Yeah, we do apologise for the... again, we promised... Well, we didn't promise, but we'd say that we'd be more consistent. But from season 9, we're going to make it more consistent.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So season 8 has been another learning curve for us in terms of recording schedule.
For sure.
Anyway, and the only other trivia fact I have is this is the third time of 4 where Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City, portrayed himself. He's also appeared in Law and Order, 30 Rock, and The Good Wife, a show that I mentioned earlier, which featured Michael J. Fox in a supporting role for a season. So there you go. So yes, so the former mayor of New York. Anyway, scene 1 of Larry versus Michael J. Fox. Jennifer greets Larry at her apartment as they're about to go to a bar where she'll be performing on piano. She goes to finish getting ready. The scene cuts to Larry. He's sitting on the couch doodling on a magazine. He draws a Hitler mustache and a swastika on someone's portrait. Jennifer's son named Greg, who's very, flamboyant, greets Larry. Greg asks what Larry is doing as Larry explains who Hitler and the Third Reich, and he explains a bit about Nazism as well. Greg says that he would kick Hitler's butt as Larry asks what he's watching on TV as he can hear it in the background in Greg's bedroom. Greg says he's watching Project Runway and he loves the fashion. What a great actor this kid is.
He's really good.
Really good, good. Larry says the symbol on the magazine is a swastika, and Greg says he loves the way the lines just zig and zag and zig. Just the way he describes it.
Go up and straight, up and straight.
Up and straight, zig and
and he
zag.
Flicks his head back and forth. He's really good.
Yeah. Funny character. He asks if Larry can get a swastika for his birthday, and Larry says it's probably not a good idea. Jennifer walks out as Greg says goodbye. Larry says he's looking forward to seeing Jennifer performing, even though she downplays it as she's just playing background music. But Larry insists, no, it's important. Playing music, regardless of its background or not, is very important.
It's nice to see Larry, kind of big-upping his girlfriend. I mean, he does say a bit later on in the episode, I'll buy him a birthday present. Will that help with the sex? And we'll talk about that during that scene for Greg's birthday. But it's just nice to see him encouraging her and saying, no, it's more than background music. You don't see that often from Larry, but it was nice to see.
It was, yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, Larry kind of defending Jennifer, which is good, because Jennifer and Larry had a couple of rough patches in the last episode, but it's good that they're still together.
Yeah.
At the nightclub, Jennifer is performing in the background as Larry is listening to her performance while everyone's just chatting away. With background music, it's, like Jennifer said, it's more for the ambience. But whereas Larry is he's kind of looking at her like she's performing in front of a crowd.
Yeah, like it's a ticketed concert and people are there to see her, but
as if it's a recital.
Yeah, and look, there's nothing wrong with him paying attention to her and being supportive, but to shush other people is a bit much, I think.
He does. And speaking of shushing, he tells a nearby couple to be quiet as Jennifer is playing, and he's getting more annoyed as everyone is talking over Jennifer. Michael J. Fox and a couple of his friends enter the bar. Michael greets Larry, walks up to him, and he reminds him that they're neighbors and Michael is upstairs from Larry. Larry asks him to keep his voice down as he tells Michael that he's dating the pianist who's performing at the moment. Michael says that they're at a bar and it's background music. It's not a recital. She's not in front of what did she say? She's not in front of Carnegie Hall. She's not performing at Carnegie Hall.
This is not Carnegie Hall. It's a restaurant.
Yeah, that's right. This isn't Carnegie Hall. It's a restaurant. Exactly. Yes. He sits down at a nearby table with his friends. The trio begin chatting as Larry whispers to Michael to shush. Fox! Shh! Fox! Larry applauds and he convinces a few people to clap as well, awkwardly.
Yeah, very reluctantly clapping.
Yeah,
I think it's more
yeah.
just to. I think it's more just to shut him up.
Probably that too, but also to kind of support his girlfriend as well.
Yeah.
Then the scene cuts to Larry, who's talking to Jennifer at the table. They're having a drink. He's very annoyed with how people just ignored her. Jennifer is praising her son Greg, as Larry says it must be challenging to have a son like him. Jennifer doesn't understand what he... she says, as a single mother, yeah, sometimes it can be challenging. But Larry says, no. Greg is a bit flamboyant, Larry says. Jennifer doesn't understand what he means, and Larry decides smartly to leave it. Try not to push it. But later on, he pushes it in a later scene.
Yeah.
Jennifer says Larry is welcome to Greg's birthday party, and Larry declines the offer, as he says he's not that kind of guy. He offers to buy Greg a gift, and he asks, like you said earlier, if it'll help with the sex. And Jennifer laughs and says, yeah, it should. Larry asks what to get him, and Jennifer says anything, as Michael looks at Larry as he's walking out of the front door, and he shakes his head. Whether intentionally or not is the question as he walks out. Larry turns to Jennifer and says that Michael is annoyed at him and shook his head. Jennifer reminds Larry that Michael has Parkinson's, that it could be a Parkinson's shake. Larry wonders if it was a pissed or Parkinson's shake. Jennifer says that Larry should apologize to Michael for shushing him. So, this is basically, it's a Curbism, Steve. So, you get one kind of joke and it recurs several times in the episode, leading to a payoff, usually.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of those things. So this is the start of Michael's actions, whether intentional or not.
Yeah,
and, Larry becomes his usual paranoid self, and he's not sure whether Michael's just G'ing him up or it's legitimately due to his disease. That's the comedy, right?
Yeah, totally. And, once he's sort of locked into an idea, it's almost impossible to convince him otherwise. He, like you said, is paranoid. He thinks that Michael's shaking because he's pissed rather than because of his Parkinson's, and that's it. He holds on to that idea throughout the episode.
Yeah, it's just funny. Lots of things that happen to Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the event, Larry goes into an elevator and another man is waiting in there as well. Larry hits floor 31, which is Michael's floor, because he's thinking about whether to apologize to Michael. So he goes to floor 31. He changes his mind about doing that and he hits floor 32. His floor. The man scoffs at him for what he did, and he says that he is in a rush and he needs to go to a higher floor. They begin arguing, and the man gets very frustrated and starts hitting most of the upper floor buttons, as well as floor 44, where the man needs to go. Larry also pushes buttons, so they're kind of like saying, why don't you just push, I might go to level 34. And the man goes, let's do 35, let's do 36. And he clicks like 3 buttons in a row, and then Larry just decides just to click, they click it to the point where the man will have to, stop at each floor to get to floor 44.
Yeah, to prove his point, he's making it way worse for himself. I don't get that.
Yeah, it's almost like what Larry would do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Larry. Maybe he's a bit neurotic like Larry as well.
Yeah, I think he's a bit of a drama queen. Even if you're running late, it's like one extra floor. It's 20 seconds? Who cares?
Yeah. Well, in his case, there's like another 10 floors.
Well, yeah, no, I mean at the start, like if he just went, this guy pushed an extra button, I'll wait an extra 20 seconds, and that's it. Like it gets worse for him.
And he seems like a fit dude. Like, just run up the fucking stairs.
Yeah.
If you're that desperate.
Even caring after the first mistake that Larry makes. I just don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, we've been there before. We've been in elevators where people have hit the wrong floor and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
What's another 20 seconds? Like,
if you're already running late and, you're going to be 5 minutes late as opposed to 5 minutes and 30 seconds, I don't think that really matters too much.
Yeah. So in this case, Larry is actually in the right.
Yeah, I think so. I think Larry says something like, should have I consulted you, or like, should have I run this by you, or something like that. I think so. And, it's just, the guy's just making a big deal over what I think is more or less nothing.
More or less nothing, yeah, definitely. I love this part, Steve, and this is my favourite part of the scene. Larry gets out at Michael's floor 31, and he mockingly tells the man that he'll just take the stairs to his floor.
Yeah.
As the elevator shuts, so the man he's going to be taking a little while to get to his floor.
Yeah, like I said, by pressing extra buttons, he's making it worse for himself. He shot himself in the foot.
Shot himself in the foot. And I think as well, it's like a two-pronged effect for Larry, the reason why he got off at floor 31. Number one, to fuck the guy over, and Larry's fit enough to walk up a flight of stairs if he needs to, which is fine. And number two, I think he probably decided, shit, I'm already at floor 31. Let me just go see Michael. and sort this shit out. So yeah, it's like a two-pronged effect.
Totally.
Michael and Larry walk into Michael's kitchen, and Larry apologizes from the shushing earlier that night. Larry reminds Michael of the head shake, and Michael says it's because of his Parkinson's, and he denies it was a quote-unquote Larry shake. Michael claims that the music that Jennifer was performing was background music, and he didn't need to be quiet. Larry asks Michael how he'd feel if Larry talked over one of his movies. And being, the self-referencing, the self-referential, the self-deprecating person that Michael is, in this episode, he reminds Larry that Michael hasn't filmed anything significant since 1985. And Larry wouldn't be able to see any of those movies anyway. Obviously because of I think he was diagnosed, was it the late 80s? He got his diagnosis, maybe early 90s?
I think it was the 90s, yeah. And then because he was in Spin City for a long time.
Yes.
And then I think it got to a point where it was like too much for him to act regularly, and he kind of retired and then, made occasional appearances like you said before.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure it was in the 90s he was diagnosed, and then maybe the early 2000s when he jumped out of Spin City because it got too much for him.
Yeah. And that's when his condition really started to deteriorate.
Totally, yeah. And he kind of, he became obviously being one of the most famous actors of sort of the last, 20 years at that time. He became, I would argue, probably the most well-known, not just the most well-known person with Parkinson's, but sort of the face of Parkinson's, if and I don't mean to sort of diminish what Parkinson's is, but, he became like a massive advocate for it, to raise public awareness of it and raise, funds for it and all of that sort of stuff. So he used it to his advantage to help himself and others as well, because he leveraged,
he's done incredible.
He leveraged his fame for a really good cause.
He has done incredible work for the
Totally.
cause. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about it, but I would assume that without his advocacy, Parkinson's wouldn't be as, it's, it wouldn't be an obscure condition, but I don't think its profile would be as high, because he's such a well-known, and not just well-known, but well-liked actor. It's hard to dislike anything Michael J. Fox has done. Who's the Boss? Fantastic. Oh, sorry, not Who's the Boss.
Not Who's the Boss. No, that was Tony Danza.
Yeah, hang on. I'm thinking All in the Family. All in the Family.
All in the Family. That's
I always get mixed up between.
Oh no, wasn't it Family Ties?
Family Ties.
Family Ties. That's
there you go.
Yeah.
And and Back to the Future and a bunch of
trilogy, of course.
Classic. I don't think many people dislike anything he's done or himself. So the fact that he turned something that's pretty horrible into something as good as it can be for himself and other people. I don't know. I think that's just really, really admirable.
Yeah, no, he's been amazing. He's been absolutely incredible, and hopefully he stays around for longer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know much about whether Parkinson's leads to someone's death. I'm not sure if it just sticks around until someone dies anyway. But I think he'll be around for a while longer.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway, continuing with the conversation. So Michael reminds Larry that, Larry says to Michael, how would you feel if someone talked over your movie? Michael says, I haven't released anything significant since maybe 85, roughly. Roughly in that time. And then Larry puts it back on Michael and he asks, what if he saw one of his movies in 1985 and talked over it? How would he feel? Michael realizes that this argument is stupid and he just he dismisses the whole thing, which it is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Michael says he hasn't released anything significant since 1985, because Back to the Future 1 I think came out in 84 or 85.
Yeah,
Back to the
roughly.
Future 2 was like 87, 88, and Back to the Future 3 I think was 1990. So maybe it's a little joke of him saying like, after Back to the Future, anything I've done is not as regarded. Like that's probably his most famous role, I would argue.
Oh it would be Marty McFly, definitely. Marty
McFly, I mean, an iconic character. So it's, I don't know, it's funny that he said, because I mean Back to the Future 2 was massive. I don't think Back to the Future 3 was as big, but it's not like it was an obscure sequel. Like it was still pretty big, and it's still pretty good compared to the first two. I don't know. It's interesting that he said nothing of note after 1985 when he had several movies, like I said, namely Back to the Future 2 and 3. I don't know. It's an interesting choice of year for him, but it'd be interesting to know why, whether he picked that on the fly or whether he's sort of making a joke of like, that's when my career peaked, because that's when Back to the Future came out. Like everything after that is not as noteworthy. I don't know.
Who knows? It was. I'm guessing because pretty much all the dialogue was improvised. I'm guessing he just probably pulled a random number out. At the moment, and he was like, 85. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's probably true. Maybe he means 85. He was back. Back to the Future 1, massive movie. And he was Marty McFly.
Yeah.
And, sequels, like, sure, the sequels were big movies too, but maybe in that moment, the point he was trying to make was, since 85, I haven't played anything significant.
Yeah.
So, as in characters.
Yeah, so, that was the peak of his career sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of the peak of his career. And unfortunately, due to issues outside of his control, that was the peak.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. But it's just funny how Larry just keeps putting it back on him.
Yeah.
Like, what about 1985 if I watched one of the movies? How do you think you'd feel? And I talked over it. And Michael's like, this is stupid. Yeah. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Michael needs to take a call as Larry sits on a futon and begins doodling doodling on a magazine cover. He begins doing a Hitler mustache, the usual things that he doodles. Michael gets upset as Larry drew a Hitler mustache, on a portrait of his father-in-law, Stephen M. Pollan, who's on the front cover. And he says that Stephen's going to come visit soon and he'll need to hide the magazine. He puts it in a drawer. Larry says he likes seeing what people look like with Hitler mustaches. Very, very interesting. Like, I love how Larry, he's Jewish, and he's mystified by Nazism and Nazi symbols and stuff.
Yeah, he's like, obviously the swastika in all circumstances is a symbol of hate and everything wrong with humanity in a way. But like, I don't know, he doesn't seem too fazed by it. Like, he's just casually doodling a swastika, and he's like, oh yeah, no, Jewish people wouldn't like that.
Especially it's Michael J. Fox's father-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's probably... I think Michael says that Stephen's Jewish as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a good look. Michael offers Larry a soda, and he inadvertently shakes the bottle as he hands it to Larry. Larry opens it up, and of course, you know what happens when you shake a soda bottle? It goes everywhere. Larry asks if Michael did it on purpose, and Michael replies dryly with Parkinson's.
Yeah, see, this is when I think, like, the bottle would have been shaken anyway, but I think he shook it a bit more.
Yes.
And then, I don't know, it just seems... The fact that he's so dismissive of Larry saying, hang on, did you shake this on purpose? He's just like, no, Parkinson's. I think if it was an accident, he would be a bit more apologetic.
Yes.
He would say,
maybe in this case he did it on purpose.
That's what I'm saying when I said at the top of the episode. I think it's a bit of both. Like, I think maybe at the restaurant, the head shake was Parkinson's, whereas I think this one was Parkinson's, and then he just shook it up a bit more just to sort of mess with Larry, because Larry's already starting to piss him off.
And Larry did a stupid thing. Like, he drew Nazi symbols on his father's portrait.
Yeah.
His father-in-law, sorry. I mean, he'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah. I mean, if someone did that, if I was Jewish, or if I had a Jewish father, or, if someone did that to me, I would think that a bit of soda on their clothes is what's the word? Like a reasonable retaliation.
Yeah. You don't want to like hit the guy, but that's one way you can get out of it. So,
it's not a punchable offense, but it's definitely a soda shaking offense, I think.
A soda shaking offense, yeah. But I think the way Michael replies with Parkinson's, I think he's putting it on. Yeah. In this case, I think he is. Yes.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Man, what are you doing?
Oh, I was just drawing a Hitler mustache.
Oh, my father-in-law. It's my father-in-law.
That's your father-in-law?
Yeah, he's a businessman. He's on Business Week magazine.
You're kidding. What the hell's he doing on the cover of magazine?
Well, he's a Führer now.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry. I just like to see what people look like with Hitler mustache.
He looks like Hitler. This is a mystery solved. My father-in-law looks like Hitler. I gotta get rid of this because he's coming over here, and if he sees this...
I'm sorry.
That's
again.
all right.
Larry is later on in his kitchen with Leon, and he says that his shirt is now ruined. It's not ruined. It's soda. Just put it in the wash, you idiot. Leon says that Michael has Parkinson's. He reminds Larry about that. Larry questions if Michael's actions are on purpose or not. Leon says that it's lucky Michael didn't shake his dick and splooge all over Larry. And Larry's like, what the hell? How do you come up with this shit?
Oh, it's so good.
I know. And it's like, Larry's like, what are you talking about? They hear clomping on their ceiling. So like clomping of feet. Larry asks Leon if that could be the Parkinson's that's doing it. As they turn around and they say, no, Michael's pissed. So it's not Parkinson's causing him to stamp around upstairs. Larry arrives at Jennifer's with a gift for Greg, as she calls out to her son. Larry hands in the gift. Greg opens it to reveal a sewing machine. Greg loves it and he shrieks in excitement, and he says he'll make costumes from various movies, including Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, as he runs off screaming with happiness with the sewing machine. Jennifer asks Larry if he's turning Greg gay, and Larry says that he's probably already gay. And they have a little bit of a back and forth and all that stuff, and and he goes like, you see him with the sewing machine, he loves it, and then Jennifer, you think Jennifer would I feel like Jennifer might be in a bit of denial, because Jennifer kind of ponders what Larry says.
Yeah, and she's really upset that Larry would be trying to encourage, if he is gay, trying to encourage what that might mean. Like if he likes sewing machines, who cares? I don't know. I'm surprised, because she was so like, at the restaurant, she's so like, I love my kid, I love his personality, I love who he is. But then when Larry's like, well, here's a thing that's encouraging you to be who you are, she's really against it. It's almost like this weird homophobia or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm surprised how like if I was her and I started going out with a dude who I would already understand to be not that thoughtful or pretty like self-absorbed, and he got my son a gift that he fucking loved, I'd be so like appreciative of that. I'd be like, wow, that's really thoughtful of you. You know, he loves this gift. I didn't expect that. I don't know. It's just, it's such a weird reversal of her initial like encouragement of her son and like support of who he is.
Yeah, that is kind of odd. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's really, it adds a bit of character to her.
Yeah, yeah, but I think you're right. I think it's denial. I don't think she's like actually homophobic, but maybe she's like, maybe it's a case of like, I don't want my son, if he's gay, there's more of a chance of maybe him being discriminated against, or I don't know. I don't think it comes from a place of ignorance. I think it's more maybe just fear, which you know, is, you know, which is still not 100% okay. Like it's a strange turn, I think, considering how open and supportive she was of her son at the restaurant.
But then again, she kind of ponders it. Like Larry kind of, I feel like you said fear. It could probably be confusion as well. Like maybe she thinks that Greg liking all these conventional quote unquote female things like sewing machines and Wizard of Oz, you know, Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, you know, wanting to sew a dress like that. She probably thinks he's just a kid and it's like he'll grow out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe she thinks, you know, he watches all these musicals and stuff, but he's a kid. You know, he'll eventually grow out of it. And then Larry's like, you sure? Maybe he's already, you know, made up his mind, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer's like, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't think of that. Larry is in bed and he can still hear Michael clumping around upstairs. Leon walks in and he says that he can't sleep either. Larry gets out of bed and Leon says he needs to speak to Michael and that Larry should go as Leon will probably kill Michael J. Fucked Up, he calls him. And he adds that Larry and Michael is a fair fight due to Larry's age and Michael's impairment. He's like, yeah, and Larry's like, what are you talking about, a fair fight? What are you talking about? So good. I love how Leon, he reckons that like an old Larry will have a good contest against a disease-ridden Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, you know, they both have individual but equal kind of handicaps. You know, in terms of not handicaps, but like disadvantages when it comes to fighting ability.
Yeah, and Leon thinks it's a fair fight, which upsets Larry. Yeah, Larry knocks on Michael's door, and Michael opens it. Sorry, and he questions Michael about the clumping. Michael is wearing stiff boots to stop him from cramping, prescribed by his doctor. He says he wrote this in his autobiography. Larry wonders why he hasn't heard clumping in the last month he's been living downstairs, and he accuses Michael of putting everything on, and he's using Parkinson's as an excuse. I love this. Michael says while he has a sickness in his body, Larry has a sickness in his mind.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Yeah, he does. Michael claims Parkinson's for every action as Larry gives him the famous stare down for about 5 to 10 seconds. Larry nods and goes, okay, all right. And then he walks out. And of course that stare down music plays. As they're doing it. Yeah, good scene. So yeah, Larry's like, all right, he's not convinced. Larry and Jeff are playing chess at Jeff's apartment as Susie walks in questioning Greg's gift and he says that it's inappropriate. Larry says that Greg loved the sewing machine and he's figured out how to use it. Susie explains that being gay means being attracted to other people, which Greg can't do at his age. Larry says he may be pre-gay. Another Larry term. I love it.
Pre-gay.
Pre-gay. Susie tells Larry to get him another gift as she walks off. Larry turns to Jeff and wonders why he has to get another one. Jeff suggests getting a slinky, but that could be gay, as it looks like you're handling balls.
Jesus.
Oh my lord. Jeff suggests a musical instrument. Larry says to avoid the flute, as Larry makes his next move in chess. Jeff says that's a terrible move, and Larry explains Michael's clumping and how it's affecting him. Susie compliments Michael and his wife's relationship, and Larry says that Michael would take a bullet for his wife. Susie asks Jeff the same question, and Jeff says that he would take one for Susie. But of course, she doesn't believe him. She walks out of the room, and something that we find out that we haven't heard over 8 seasons, Steve, we find out what people say about Jeff when Susie leaves the room, when people talk under their breath about Jeff, or when Jeff leaves the room as well. Larry tells Jeff that people say poor bastard about Jeff whenever he leaves the room, and that surprises Jeff.
I'm surprised it surprises him.
It does. Everyone just feels like when Susie comes in and goes on a rant and walks out and Jeff walks out, people in the room are just like, oh, fuck, poor Jeff.
Poor bastard.
Poor guy, poor bastard. And it's a surprise to Jeff. You think he'd know that he's a poor bastard?
Yeah, I mean, he's not under any illusions of how he's treated by Susie. You know, like he always comments on it and like he always seems annoyed with her and like, I don't know, like he's aware that he's under her thumb. So the fact that people don't comment on that when he leaves the room is, you know, and that he's surprised by that, you know, it's a surprise to me.
Yeah. But I'm sure he realizes that he's under the thumb.
Yeah.
He's quite aware.
Maybe he just, like, to help him cope, he thinks that, well, no one else will notice, so it's all right. But
denial. Again, denial. Larry greets the doorman in his building and he thanks him for the Yankees tickets. Well, the doorman thanks Larry for the tickets. Larry runs into Michael as he's going around the corner. Michael claims Parkinson's for that act, as Larry claims that Michael is clumping even more and for longer. Michael tells him to go to the board to complain as Michael heads out. Larry tells the doorman what Michael has done to him, and the doorman says that there'll be a problem if Michael is touched again. He says you can do anything to any other resident of the building, like I don't care, but if you touch Michael, then there's going to be a problem. Then obviously that plays into the trope where someone with a disadvantage, a disability, is kind of seen as the good one, even though sometimes they can be the bad one. You know?
Yeah, there's an assumption of they can't be in the wrong. You know, they need to be defended or
they're infallible.
Yeah, exactly. They need to be stood up for. You know.
Exactly, even though it's probably Michael that's doing all this Machiavellian shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably him, causing it. Larry yells out that Parkinson's people always take advantage of non-Parkinson's people as he walks towards his apartment. At the board meeting, Larry is pleading his case against Michael to the committee with others watching on. The board reminds Larry of Michael's disease, as Larry claims he's using it as a cover to get away with his acts, and that the original sufferer would be Mr. Parkinson, would be upset with what Michael is doing.
I love the idea that he thinks that it was named after a dude named, Bill Parkinson or something.
Yeah, Patient Zero was named Parkinson. I know, so good. I'm pretty sure it might have been. Usually diseases are named after the people who discover it, right? The elevator incident is brought up as Larry defends his actions. So, of course, the guy from the elevator is a bit of a male Karen, isn't he? He's a bit of a, like you said, a drama queen. So he even brought it to the board. Stupid.
Yeah, bit of a sook.
A bit of a sook. The board decides that Larry is on probation after 2 strikes, and he says that if he incurs a 3rd strike, he'll be asked to leave the building. They suggest Larry donate $10,000 to Michael's charity at a fundraiser in the building courtyard to make amends with Michael, to Larry's dismay. So originally they say, to make up with Michael, you should attend the courtyard fundraiser. And then Larry's like, yeah, okay. And they say, oh, you should give a donation. And Larry's like, how much? And he goes, 10. They go 10 grand. And he's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's a bit surprised at that amount.
Yeah. I know he's worth a lot of money, but still, like 10 grand for him is like, oh fuck. Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Jesus. Yeah, I
mean, not being prepared to be asked to donate that amount and then being asked, that's regardless of how much money you have, it's not insignificant.
No, it's quite a big deal. Larry runs into Jennifer and Susie, who are sitting on a park bench, and he has another gift for Greg. Susie asks what Greg got, and Larry says it's a violin, which they're very impressed with. Susie says that the sewing machine has to go, and Jennifer will give it back to Larry. Larry refuses and says that Greg loves the gift, and he won't take it back. Greg is called over, and he compliments Susie's bag, another, quote-unquote, pre-gay trait that Greg has. Greg says that he loves his sewing machine and that he made something for Susie. He shows her a pillow sham, and it's got a blue-purple pillow sham, and it's got a purple swastika on the front. Oh boy. The entire group is shocked. Greg says that Larry showed him a swastika and told him about that man. What's the man's name? And Larry quietly says, Hitler. It makes both ladies furious. Larry is backing away from Susie as a cyclist heads towards her. Jeff jumps in the way and pushes Susie out of the way and takes the quote-unquote bullet for her. Jeff confirms he did what he promised, and Susie said it was technically a bike, but thanks anyway. So there you go. Jeff stuck to his word. There you go. So he even, despite Jeff being under Susie's thumb all the time, Jeff really does love Susie, I guess, and care for her, deep down. There you go. Michael is greeting a crowd at his courtyard fundraiser, and one of the guests is Mayor Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City. Jeff arrives and greets Larry, who's in the crowd. He complains that his side is hurting him from the bike, and he has to go in for a couple of tests and some appointments. Larry says that Jeff saved Susie's life. I love this part. Jeff asks what Larry got Greg, and Larry's about to say it before being shushed by the doorman who's nearby. That's one of my favourite parts. Larry makes a violin air gesture while Michael is talking. The crowd thinks that it is being directed at Michael, and he and the crowd are shocked. Larry yells to the crowd that they're misunderstanding, and he claims he got a violin as a gift, because we all know the violin gesture. It's like mock sympathy.
Yeah, it's like keep crying or... Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, obviously, for those who don't know that expression, it's kind of like it's used when someone's kind of catastrophizing something which is insignificant.
Yeah.
It might be like, oh, my coffee was burnt. Oh, play the violin, dude.
Yeah, you're mockingly saying like, oh, woe is me. Like, your problems aren't real.
Yeah, your problems aren't real. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, Michael has a big problem with his Parkinson's, so it kind of, it makes Larry look like he's mocking him.
Yeah.
Mock sympathy for him, yeah. Mayor Bloomberg gets on the stage and he says that he is furious with Larry. He threatens to ban Larry from New York City. Larry says he's a native, he's from New York. You can't ban him. He gets booed and hissed out of the fundraiser. And Michael thanks Mayor Bloomberg for his help. He shakes his hand. So, again, Michael is seen as the hero, the white knight, the angel, if you will, and Larry, the villain. But I love that violin. As soon as, when I watched this episode for the first time, oh my God, I saw that violin gesture and I thought, oh, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
As soon as he started doing it, I'm like, oh, fuck, in front of everyone, I'm like, oh, while Michael's talking about Parkinson's.
Larry.
Like, oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh no, something's going to go wrong here. And it did very, very well. Jeff and Susie are at the doctor's office and Jeff is in a hospital gown and the doctor says that Jeff will be fine. He recommends a suppository to alleviate the pain known as a bullet, and it's in the shape of a bullet. and which Jeff will need to use to help with his mild internal bleeding. As Jeff and Susie look at each other, Jeff looks very disappointed that he's going to get a literal bullet up his ass, while Susie smiles. Kind of smiles knowing that Jeff will take a literal bullet for her, and also the method that he has to take his medication. It's kind of kind of smiling as well.
Yeah, a bit of Schadenfreude.
A bit of Schadenfreude, yeah. It's a great ending to that B plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Larry runs into the doorman who walks off as well as Michael. Larry apologizes for what happens and Michael forgives him. Larry asks if there is anything he can do. Michael offers Larry to come to the hospital to play with sick kids. And Michael says that Larry has to wear a mask, so they don't get diseases and stuff, because they're very vulnerable children. Larry is very confused about the masks. Larry asks when this will be on, and Michael says it'll be this Saturday. And Larry, he pulls another thing like he did earlier in the season. He says he has to be out of town this weekend. And Michael asks where he's going. And no, he's not going to Cincinnati, or he's not going back to LA. He's not going to Texas. No. In the final scene of this episode and for season 8, Larry and Leon are walking down a Parisian street. Larry says they have to stay in Paris for 2 months. Leon is eating a chalupa, and Larry asks why he isn't eating French food in the best country with the best food in the world. Why he isn't eating French food. They're walking, and a man pulls up, and he pig parks, so he double parks. He goes to the man, and Larry speaks in fluent French, and he argues with the man about being a pig parker, and the music, the end music plays, and Larry calls him, as the credits are about to roll, calls him an asshole. It's like, you do asshole. And he goes, me asshole, the French guy. Yeah, as the camera pans out and you see, the Eiffel Tower in the background and Leon's still eating his chalupa, and the men are arguing, and the background music begins. It's still going, and then the scene cuts to the credits, and that is the end of the episode and the end of season 8.
Yep.
There you go. So Steve, that was Larry versus Michael J. Fox. I enjoyed this one. 3.5 Larrys out of 5. What about you?
I give it 4. I thought it was a pretty good season ending and a pretty good episode in and of itself. In a way, I guess like the rest of the season, a bit of a low-key ending. Eventful, obviously, that Larry gets kicked out of New York and ends up in Paris for a couple of months. But compared to a lot of season endings, it's not as climactic or eventful. And I think that's just because the season didn't really have a specific storyline that it followed. It was just Larry being Larry in another city in New York as opposed to LA. That was kind of the gist of the whole season.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, without a storyline, a specific storyline that's building up to something, it's hard to end it on a big, wow, I didn't expect that to happen, or, a really eventful note. It was just more of, well, New York's had enough of Larry's shit, so he's got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I'm surprised as well, Steve, that the episode was only 28 minutes long.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually the finales had been at least 30, maybe even. I think last season was 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think because nothing massively significant happened in the episode or throughout the season in terms of really changed Larry as a person, or it was like him finding out he was adopted, or being the main star of the producers. They're massive moments in Larry's life, and it's a storyline that follows through the season and then comes out in a big finale. Whereas this one, like I said, was just things do happen to Larry, but each episode is kind of self-contained and it's just him being Larry David in New York as opposed to LA. So I guess there wasn't a lot of room for a massive eventful ending. You didn't need a longer episode because there wasn't any need for it. It was just, well, Larry's just being an asshole to Michael J. Fox, and Michael J. Fox gets him kicked out of New York, sort of thing. That's, you know what I mean? I don't know. I just don't think a longer episode was justified because there wasn't this big momentous season finale like previous seasons.
No, that's true. Up until the Paris scene, it didn't even feel like a final episode. It would
No.
have been something you would have slipped in, halfway through.
Yeah. It wasn't. It didn't feel like it was building up to something, or it didn't feel like it was tying together a bunch of parts of the first 9 episodes. It could have just been if they removed the Paris scene, it could have been anywhere in the season and it would have been fine.
Even if they ended on the Michael and Larry scene where Michael says he's got to go away for a while.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's a joke from earlier in the season.
Yeah.
That could have ended it like that. It would have still been funny. Because you kind of get what's going to happen.
The Paris scene I thought was pretty funny because it just mirrored what happened, kind of what got Larry kicked out of LA, or, not kicked out, but the reason he had to leave LA to go to New York.
Yeah.
It's just the same situation. And I think the whole point is that Larry is Larry regardless of the context, whether he's in New York or LA or Paris, whether he's married or divorced, whether he's on his own or with his friends or, his girlfriend, like he's just going to be a discourteous sort of prick regardless of the scenario, which, we always say that, that's what makes the show great. It's like, regardless of what happens to Larry, all the opportunities he has for growth and self-improvement and making things right between people, it's always just kind of come back to Larry is a prick and the world just needs to deal with it, regardless of where he is or who is around.
Where he is in the world, exactly. Yeah. And but like I said, good episode, good season finale.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, a good way to cap off the season. And speaking of season 8, as we do at the end of each one, we do a brief recap. We talk about our favorite episodes and what Larry has gone through in his journey. And for season 8, lots has happened, man. I mean, it's been a while since we've gone end to end in season 8 doing the recordings due to obviously different things. But yeah, would you believe that season 8 started with him divorcing Cheryl? Felt like years ago we did that episode.
Yeah.
And he's, questioned his Jewish faith by sleeping with a Palestinian woman. Yeah, he tackled a drunk guy on a plane and, he was seen as a hero. He had a run-in with Ricky Gervais. He did that move to New York. Yeah. So, yeah, quite incredible what he's done. Yeah,
actually, now that you put it, I guess, even though there wasn't one through line in terms of narrative through the season, it was pretty eventful for Larry. It's been post-divorce, it's been a pretty, significant year or so of Larry's life. But, comes back to him just, he's an asshole.
He's an asshole, definitely. And and like we were saying earlier, this is the last episode that aired until 6 years later when season 9 was released. Amazing. Wow, what a hiatus.
Yeah.
I thought the last hiatus was bad. This one's worse.
You've got to wonder if this was like, if Larry at the time was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to make another season. So if this was the very last episode ever made, I'm unsure of whether it would have been a satisfactory ending to the show. But at the same time, what I was saying before, which is that regardless of what happens, it always comes down to, like, the whole crux of the show is Larry is Larry. It doesn't matter what happens around him or in his own personal life, where he is, who is around. Like, he's never going to change. Yeah. And that's it. Maybe, if this was the last episode at the time and it took him 6 years to think, maybe I'll do some more, that was the point of the ending of the show, which is just like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't need a big, send off. Like, Larry doesn't need to learn something or like, there doesn't need to be tied off. It just, regardless of where Larry is, he's a prick. And that's kind of, that's an ending in and of itself because that's the whole point of the show.
That's the crux.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
Before we finish the episode, Steve, my favorite, I don't know if you have your list, but my favorite episodes of season 8, Palestinian Chicken and Mr. Softy, I gave them 5 out of 5. Yep. And The Hero was my third favorite episode, 4.5 out of 5. Do you have your favorites written down or no?
I don't, but Palestinian Chicken by far was, I think I gave it 5 out of 5. And
one of the greatest Curb episodes ever.
Yeah, we both agree it's an all-timer, probably it top is. 5. And it, it regularly appears in top 5 or top 10 episodes for lists of best Curb episodes. It's considered by fans to be one of the best, and it makes sense. It's just it's a perfect episode. I think as well, Mr. Softy was up there for me and too. Also Carth Periscope.
Yep.
That was up there. I don't have a list of what I scored each episode, but the clear winner is Palestinian Chicken, and then a couple of others that were sort of 4 or 4.5, and then the rest of the season. I don't think there was any duds in the season, but overall, I think the average was a bit lower, maybe than season 6 and 7.
True.
Which maybe is a reason why Larry decided to take a 6-year break. Maybe he thought 8 seasons in a row, more or less, like that's a long run for any show. You need to take a bit of a break and recharge yourself creatively.
For sure. But we're looking forward to bringing you season 9 as soon as we can.
Totally.
Thank you so much for listening to Curbcast. We appreciate your messages. We appreciate your reviews. We get emails from you guys all the time saying how much you enjoy the show and how it's part of your day-to-day life, which is absolutely incredible. But yeah, we can't thank you enough. And again, we do apologize over the last couple of episodes. You know, we were a bit out of schedule again, but we will release this one as soon as we can, once it's all put in, and try and be more consistent in season 9. We've got a bit of a plan to make sure that there's no weeks missing for episodes, so we're going to hopefully stick to the plan. And of course, if anything changes in our personal lives or whatever, we'll definitely let you know if there's any delays. But yeah, hopefully for season 9, we've learned a lot from the last couple of seasons after the delays we've had bringing out episodes. But hopefully season 9, we can go back to being consistent for you.
Totally.
My name's Ivan.
And I'm Stephen.
And that was Curbcast Season 8. We will see you as soon as possible for Curbcast Season 9, Episode 1. You take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of Mishmash Media, an independent podcast network. Follow us on social media at Mishmash Media AU or support us on Patreon. All those links are in the show notes.